ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एदि वेदस्य मा आनिस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीरनेन अदितेन आहोरात्रान् सन्ददामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु मामवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः नारायणं निखिलपूर्णगुणैकदेहं सर्वज्ञम् अच्युतमपेतसमस्तदोषम् प्राणस्य सर्वचिद् अचित् परमेश्वरस्य साक्षादधीश्वरमियां शरणं रमेशम्. So good morning, good evening and good afternoon for part 7 of Aitareya Upanishad Chintana. Hope you're all well. So thinking about the Rishi, Mahidasa, Aitareya, Rama, Chaturmukha Prana, Chaturmukha Brahma, Mukhya Prana and all the Acharyas. The Devata being Mahidasa Aitareya himself also goes by the name Akaranamaka Paramatma, and it's primarily in prose. So last week we kind of looked at it again. What are the key teachings of this amazing Upanishad? We understood that the key focus is Vishnurahasya, talking about the greatness or the glory of the Vishnu Tattva, glories of Lord's creation. Sarva Shabda Vachyatva of Brahman is a key concept of Aitareya Upanishad. What is Sarva Shabda Vachyatva? Every sound, every letter, every word, every sentence is a epithet of the Lord. It celebrates only the greatness of Paramatma. Every sound of the universe celebrates the glories of Paramatma is the key concept of Aitareya Upanishad. And of course, there are so many other vidyas and upasanas that gets discussed in Aitareya Upanishad. And one such upasana that we are going to be, hopefully dealing with today and subsequent few satsangs is the Ukta Vidya. That is the first vidya of the Aitareya Upanishad that talks about who this Ukta is and celebrates him. So we will make a pravesha on the Ukta Vidya today. Okay. Now, of course, Aitareya Upanishad comes in the Aitareya Aranyaka. So we have finished the first khanda, and now we are making a pravesha into the second khanda of the first adhyaya, which comes in the first pragataka of the Aitareya Aranyaka. Okay, so before we start, of course, let's think about the Ananteshwara temple where Srimad Acharya used to sit and give his commentaries on the Aitareya Upanishad. So that place, just think about this again and let's get into this. So what have we done over the last 6 weeks? So the last 6 weeks, we have completed the first kanda of the Aitareya Upanishad. And how does it go? येष पन्थाः एतत् कर्म एतत् ब्रह्म एतत् सत्यं तस्मात् न प्रमाद्ये तन्न अतीयात् न हि अत्यायन् पूर्वे ये अत्यायन्ते परा बभूवुः तदुक्तं ऋषिणा प्रजाहतीस्रो अत्यायम् ईयुर्न्यन्या अर्कम् अभितो विविश्रे बृहत्ततस्तौ भुवनेष्वन्तः पवमानो हरित आविवेशेति प्रजाहतीस्रो अत्यायमायन् ईयुरिति या वै ता इमाः प्रजाः तीस्रो अत्यायमायन् तानि इमानि वयांसि वङ्गावगदाश्च ईरपादाः न्यन्या अर्कम् अभितो विविश्रे इति ता इमाः प्रजाः अर्कम् अभितो निविष्टाः इममेव अग्निम् बृहत्ततस्तौ भुवनेष्वन्तः इति अदवु एव बृहत् भुवनेष्वन्तः असाव आदित्यः पवमानो हरितः आविवेशेति वायुरेव पवमानो दिशो हरित आविष्टः. So this was the first kanda, and the words, some of the words that came in this, we will all be very familiar because we have been dissecting out those words in some real great details over the last several weeks. So, what is the essence of the first kanda? Because the first kanda directly leads us on to the second kanda of the Aitareya Upanishad. So, Sarva Shabda Vachyatva of Brahman, as we discussed, one of the key concepts of Aitareya Upanishad, here is a summary of all the words that we have learned that actually denote Brahman. Panta, Karma, Brahma, Satyam, Arkam, Agni, Bruhat, Aditya, Pavamana, Vayu, Asau, and of course Omkara. Okay. So you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 12 shabdas, 12 words in the first kanda that gives you we have discussed that, how it denotes Vishnu in the Parama Mukhya Vritti. And of course, we have seen that in the context of Mukhya Vritti of what it could denote, and in the Parama Mukhya Vritti, how it denotes Vishnu Tattva. So this is Sarva Shabda Vachyatva that we can get from the first kanda for our contemplation. So the essence of the first khanda, of course, is it talks about that there are categories of souls. Some souls transgress Brahman, and some souls abide by Brahman. Some souls forget Brahman. Some souls always remember him. Some souls call themselves as Brahman, whereas the other group of souls call themselves the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Okay, so there are these kind of big differences in the categories of souls, and Aitareya, Mahidasa Aitareya spoke to us about that tripartite classification of souls and their destinations. So we have seen quite a lot about those souls that transgress Brahman as Vayamsi, Vangavagadaha, Yirapadaha, Pishachas, Rakshasas, and Asuras. Level 1, level 2, and level 3. The worst form of souls that actually claim themselves as God are the Asuras. They are the worst category. And our Mahidasa Aitareya tells them they are the Irapadas. So the destinations for these souls eventually is they cross through the Vaitarani and they go to the eternal hells. Then there is the next category of souls, which is, you could say majority of folks currently in Mrityu Loka. What is that? They're all indifferent to Brahman. They don't even bother. They don't even think about these things. They're materialists. They're pleasure seekers. They just want to live here, have fun, and think that this is all to it. Okay? So these guys are the Nitya Samsarians. They will go again and again, they'll rotate through samsaras. Then you have the other category of souls, and these are called Martya Sattamaha or Manushyottamas, Rishis, and Devas. So Manushyottamas are the level 1, Rishis are level 2, and our Devas are level 3. So these guys, they cross over Viraja and they go to Vaikunta. That is their destination. The ones that cross Viraja and the ones that cross Vaitarani and the rest who are stuck here in the Mrityu Loka. So those are the three types of souls that we infer generally from the scriptures. And of course, the first kanda of Aitareya Upanishad focuses primarily on the first and the third category of the souls. Okay. So we need to decide where do we fit into this equation? Are we interested, or are we going to be crossing over the Vaitarani, or are we going to be crossing Viraja? And I am pretty convinced that all of us eventually will cross over the Viraja. Okay. So Deva Vaha Sarva Prakashaha Rishayo Antaha Prakashaha Manushya Eva Bahihi Prakashaha. Srimad Acharya gives a reference Chaturveda Shika Shruti. That category, this is a Vedic statement that gives a categories of souls as to how they contemplate on Brahman, which is exactly what Aitareya Upanishad is talking about. So the Manishyottamas, they see Arkam in Agni. The Rishis see Bruhat in Aditya, and in the Devas see Pavamana in Vayuhu. Okay, so we have kind of understood this. So if you go to Tattva Sankhyanam of Srimad Acharya, he gives, of course, whatever Srimad Acharya has stated in his works is only evidence in the Upanishads and in the Vedas. And this is a classic example of it. Deva, Rishi, Pitru, Pa, Nara, Iti, Muktastu, Panchadaha. So what Acharya gives here is There are three here, the Devas, Rishis, and Martya Sattamas. So he gives them Deva, Rishi, Naras. Nara means Manushyottamas. In between, he is given two other folks, Pa and Pitru. Pas are the Chakravartis. Yeah, these are all the great kings of the Vedic times. Now nobody exists. Vedic times, great rishis, great Chakravartins and Rajas of the ancient times who are also of that category. Okay, so they are the Pas. Then you have Pitruganas, who are in the region of rishis. So they are the another category. So Acharya gives further information from the Shrutis that you can include Pas along with Martyasattamas and Pitruganas along with rishis, and if you do that, you actually have five categories of souls that actually go towards Viraja. Okay. Then Acharya and Tattva Sankhya also talks about Daitya, Rakshasa, Pishachakaha, Martyadamascha, Chaturdeva, Tamo Yogyaha, Prakirtitaha. Okay. So he includes the lowest of humans also in this category and gets them as four. So you have the lowest category of humans, then you have the Pishachas, Rakshasas, and Asuras. They all make their Pravesha to Vaitarani. So it gives you a nice little framework in which we can understand how there are so many different types of souls in the universe. And if we take this view very seriously, we will be able to understand what is happening in the universe right now, what is happening in this world, what is happening in the places where we live at this point of time, and how there are different types of souls doing different things. So we can actually have that kind of a philosophical view of what is going on here. So the Manushyottamas do Upasana of Vishnu in Agni. Agni is 15th rank in the Vedic pantheon and they attain liberation. The sages, the rishis, they do Upasana of Vishnu in Surya, who is the 12th rank, and attain liberation. The Devas do Upasana of Vishnu, who is in Vayu, 3rd rank, and is all pervasive, and they attain liberation. So when you look at this in the proper philosophical perspective, you understand even the Vedic ranks that you see, the Vedic pantheons that we are all very familiar with, fits in very well with this approach. Yeah. So that is why that Samanvaya is perfect. What Aitareya is telling and what Srimad Acharya is telling is very, very perfect. 15th rank, 12th rank, and the 3rd rank. Manishottama, Rishis, and Devas. Okay. Here is a quiz, quick discussion for our stuff. Kamalaji, your laptop is making some writings on my slide, so I don't know why that is happening. So perhaps you may want to not to touch the screen, Kamalaji. Thank you. So here I have a small question. There is a view, okay, and every time I listen to such a view, my heart trembles and says, look, so what happens to those souls who actually think that way? Okay? Some of these claim that they are the followers of the Vishnu faith. Okay, so I have a question here. Can Manishyottamas ascend in this ladder? Can we ascend? Like I am a Manu, let's say if a person in the satsang is a Manushottama, can he or she ascend to a Chaturmukha Brahma status? There is a view out there which is a sad view, but what is our view in this satsang? Are we capable of ascending ourselves to the status of, say, a Deva or a Chaturmukha Brahma in this equation? Can we progress to such an extent that from Agni we can go to Aditya, and then we can become, we can do this Pavamano in Vayu, and then can we ourselves become Devas? So what is the view here? Do we have a view in this satsang? Is that possible?
Madhuji Suresh here.
Mm-hmm.
At best, we can be ourselves, nothing beyond. That's how I would say. I mean, unless I am Brahma himself who is born here for whatever reason. But then if I am Suresh, then there's no way I can become Brahma that way.
Yeah, thank you very much, Suresh ji. And I completely agree with you on this. But there are some folks out there who think, Saptarshi ji, go for it.
Yeah. Hi, Madhusudanji. Namaskar. So I think that if we keep doing our karma, because Brahma, Rudra, Indra, these all are positions according to Pancharatra, right? So maybe in next Manvantara or in next Kalpas, but it's all up to Bhagavan's Ichha. That if our sadhana is so powerful that we are eligible for that position, but not in this, definitely not in this, in this creation, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Saptarshiji, for that perspective. Nita, Shushuji?
So to become Chaturmukha Brahma, you have to be Rujugana, and I doubt very much if any of us are in that category. I mean, there are reports or stories that Vadiraja is supposed to be the next Vayu. So if people think he was a human being, then he could have become next Chaturmukha, but uh, that's what I know.
Thank you, Sushuji. Yeah, interesting idea. So I think we have all got those ideas well. I think the Saptarshi's point is very well taken, and Sureshji's point is very well taken, saying that Chaturmukha, Rudra, Sesha, they're all ranks. Yeah, they are a position. Yeah, they are a position, and there are infinite souls in that category that occupy that position in every creation. Okay, there have been infinite Chaturmukha Brahmas that have gone, and there are infinite Chaturmukhas Brahmas that yet to come. And there are infinite Suresh kind of jivas that have come and gone, and there are infinite Suresh type of jivas will come. But the liberation or the moksha of Suresh type of jivas is their fulfillment, their self-realization, and their communion with the Paramatma. So Suresh type of souls can reach only Suresh types of souls. Chaturmukha Brahma type of souls or can only reach Chaturmukha Brahma type of souls. So we have to be very clear about this, about what our status is in this grand scheme of things.
Matsujin, I have a doubt. Like when you get this aparoksha jnana, what are you getting? You're knowing your gradation, or you know who you are.
So,
we'll know where we are or who you are.
So you might, very good question, Pratibhaji. So my understanding of this is in Aparoksha Jnana. Before you get Aparoksha Jnana, you get self-realization, isn't it? You get self-realization first, where you get to know who you are, where, what is your yogyata and where you are, what you may get that idea at that point. You may realize who you are, and then you will have a glimpse of Paramatma. But the real where you are in the grand scheme of things happens in liberation, where there are all these stations, right? Sarupya, Samipya, Salokya, and Sayujya. So Salokya being you are in the periphery of Vaikuntha or in the region of the Vaikuntha. So when you are in liberation state, probably you will know exactly where you are, what is your relationship. You will have superiors to you whom you will be worshipping. The folks who are equal to you, you will be their friends. And for folks who are below you, you will be actually compassionate and looking after them. There is no jealousy in moksha. You will be doing that, is what the Shastras say. So, what I wanted to, this particular slide actually gives us an insight as to we should understand and we will realize how insignificant we are. Manushyottamas at the lowest levels. Yeah. And we don't even know we are Manushyottamas, but we are trying to find out in our own individual journeys. So we are currently nowhere. And for some folks to think that in every creation that they will achieve so much extra karma points and brownie points that they will eventually become Chaturmukha Brahma is totally wishful thinking. But Sushruti is right. There are some souls who are here, the Rijugana Devatas, for example, Vayu, Latavyas, and they're all described in the Shastras. Okay, but that is an exceptional category. We are talking about mundane, garden variety Manushyottamas. Hopefully, among us, there are Manushyottamas. We can only strive to achieve Manushyottamatva. We cannot become Chaturmukha Brahmatva. Yeah. And sometimes it pains me to hear some folks saying that you can do your philosophical progress so that you become a Chaturmukha Brahma. 100% it's not going to happen unless you are Vadiraja Tirtha. Okay? So I hope that gives you a framework in which how this works. So Coming back to our three categories of souls, level 1, level 2, and level 3. So we understood that they have increasing capacity to do upasana of Brahman. Okay, and we also realized from the previous satsang that increasing capacity to do upasana of Brahman is directly proportional to the increasing blissfulness in moksha. Okay, and we looked at the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad verse talking about the the Aitareya Upanishad verse talking about the various gradations of Ananda, starting from the Manushyottamas all the way to the Chaturmukha Brahma. Okay, so we will have increasing blissfulness of in moksha. That is all it is. Okay. But then the question is, how do these souls do upasana of Brahman? So we said, yeah, Arkam in Agni, Bruhat in Aditya, and Pavamana in Vayu. That is a general framework. The general framework in which these souls do upasana is like this. But in individual categories, so in Manushyottamas, when they look at Arkam in Agni, how do they do the upasanas? Okay, so that is the next level of discussion that Aitareya wants to take us. Okay. So here is another interesting point that we need to be very mindful of is it is useful to know about the rishis and devas. We are not rishis, we are not devatas, yeah. But it is helpful to know from the scriptures how do these guys do upasanas. But Manushyottamas, how do Manushyottamas do upasana, probably is relevant to us. Because we may be Manushyottamas, and if we do our upasanas like this, or if we have the inclination to do the upasanas like how the Manushyottamas do, then maybe we will make philosophical progress. So we would want to focus on us, yeah, for our progression. But the Vedas, particularly Aitareya Upanishad and our acharyas and gurus have told us that also knowing what is it the rishis do, what is it the devas do, it is helpful and it gives punya to us. Okay, so that is the context in which we need to approach these verses. So how do our various souls do upasana of Brahman? Okay, here is the Ukta Vidya. That is the second khanda of the Aitareya Upanishad that talks about this. It is an amazing, amazing khanda. Lots of text here. So let's try and see if we can, go through at least the first few lines. Let's read it first. Uktam, uktam, iti vai prajaha vadanti tad idameva uktam, iyameva prithvi. इतो हि इदं सर्वम् उत्तिष्ठति यदिदं किंच तस्य अग्निर अर्कः अन्नम अशीतयः अन्नेन हि सर्वम् अश्नुते अंतरिक्षम एव उक्तम अंतरिक्षम वा अनुपतन्ति अंतरिक्षम अनुदावयन्ति तस्य वायुर अर्कः अन्नम अशीतयः अन्नेन हि इदं सर्वम् अश्नुते असावेव द्यौर उक्तम अमुतः प्रदानात् यदिदं सर्वम् उत्तिष्ठति यदिदं किंच तस्य असाव आदित्यः अर्कः अन्नम अशीतयः अन्नेन हि इदं सर्वम् अश्नुते इति अधिदैवतम्. Okay, so that is the first 5 lines of the Ukta Vidya that talks about the Adidhaiva Upasana. Adidhaiva Upasana as to how this needs to happen. And then it goes as to Ata Adhyatmam, and then it goes to the Adhyatma Chintana of the Brahman. Okay, very, very interesting text. When you look at it, it feels gobbledygook. What is it? What are these guys actually talking about? What is Mahidasa Aitareya talking about? Uktam uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti. Okay. To understand what is it that our Mahidasa Aitareya is talking about, what is this uktam uktam? He said twice. Uktam uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti. The upasana of Brahman starts with these words. Uktam uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti. Okay. So to understand what that ukta is, we have to go straight to the basics. We understood from the first kanda that our Brahman is the creator of real universe. Brahmaisha, and we use what? He used the words like Panta, Karma, Brahma, and Satyam, right? So we understood from our Acharya, Brahmaisha Gunapurnatvat, Kartrutvat Karma Matritaha, Satyam Sadhu Swarupataha. So we have to bring all that in this equation. Okay. So kartrutvat becomes important. Kartrutvat, karma matrutvat. This Paramatma is called karma because he is kartrutvat. What kartrutvat? Jagat janmadi kartrutvat. Yeah. Janmadyasya yataha. He is the creator of the universe, is the fundamental definition of Brahman. That is why our Brahma Sutra starts with this. Okay. And of course, Taitareya. Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayanti, abhisamvishanti, tad vijijnasasva tad brahmeti. And there are so many important verses that establish that this Paramatma is the creator of the universe. He is karma, kartrutvat, karma matrutvat. Therefore, there is nobody who is a creator. Only this Brahman, Vishnu is the creator. Therefore, there is no one equal to him and no one superior to him. Natat samascha abhi adhikascha drishyate. Yeah, that is Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Purushan na param kinchit sakashta sa paragatihi. Katha Upanishad. Mattah parataram na anyat kinchit asti. Gita 7:7. Okay. And Gita 15:18, the most important verse. Yasmat ksharam atitoham aksharaadapi cha uttamaha atosmin loke vede cha pratitah purushottamah. There are so many declarations in the Vedas that this guy is the highest. There is nobody equal to him, nobody superior to him. Everything is below him. Yet some folks think they themselves are Brahman. Okay, this is the sad fact of certain schools that they can't even read the Vedas properly. There is no one equal to him and no one superior to him. Okay. And that is why the first kanda started off with this in the later portions, isn't it? If anyone thinks he is equal to or superior to Brahman, he is doomed forever. Ye atyayan te parababuhu is what the Aitareya Upanishad said. So this getting these bearings right is very, very important for us as we navigate the second kanda. Because it starts off with this Vukta. It starts. Who is Vukta? What is the meaning of Vukta? So that is what our Srimad Acharya has given us a clear direction as to how we have to do that Ukta Upasana. This Janmadyasya Yataha is the fundamental concept. And again, we have done this so many times, isn't it? The journey of souls. It is these guys that are controlling this Vyuha forms of Narayana. Panta, Karma, Brahma, Satyam, Sankarshana, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, and the Mula form Narayana. These are the guys that control. They are all non-different from each other, but they control the journey of souls. Okay. When the Shvetashvatara Rishi, the very first what the Shvetashvatara Rishi asked, Kim Karanam, Brahma, Kutasmajata, Jivamakena, Kvacha Sampratishta, Adhishtitaha Kena, Sukha Dukkeshu Vartamahe, Brahma Vido Vyavastam. That is the starting point. Who controls everything? Who has brought this universe into this being? Who brought this universe into creation? What the hell is going on here? We are just here. We don't even think about these bigger questions. Shvetashvatara Rishi asked that in the very first question, and he systematically answers it. And the final conclusion there is, it is this Brahman, our Vishnu, our Paramatma, who is the ultimate controller of everything. That is the journey of souls. So these Manushyotamas, these Rishis and these Devatas, they have understood this fact. Because they have understood this fact, they praise Paramatma. Uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti. Aitareya says, guys, in the first kanda, I told you about these three categories of souls. How do they worship me? They worship me as Ukta. Ukta is how they worship me. Uktam, Uktam, iti vai prajaha vadanti. The first line of the second kanda is philosophically extremely profound. Why is that the case? What is that meaning of Ukta that Mahidasa Aitareya is saying? And there are various ways of looking at it, and we have to systematically dissect this out with regards to what this Ukta is. Okay? Is Ukta Brihadukta? So, Brihati Sahasra is also called Brihadukta. So one of the questions that might arise in us is, what is Mahidasa Aitareya talking about? Is he talking about this Brihadukta? Because Brihadukta, as we know, if you can recall the first satsang that we did in the introduction, we spoke briefly about this Chatvarimshati Brahmana in Aitareya Brahmana, 40 chapters. There is a prescription that is given where you do yajna for 1 year called Gavamayana Yajna. In that yajna, there is a portion called Mahavrata Yajna, which, as you are all aware, Indra did that after killing Vratasura and became Mahendra. So, in that Mahavrata Yajna, which is done in the morning and afternoon and evening, it's a big yajna. Okay? But in the afternoon, you recite certain mantras twice. They are called Nishkaivalya Shastra mantras. It is the Hotru who recites Shastra mantras. Hotru are the reciters of the Rig Veda. Udgatru puts the Rig Veda in music, and that is the Samaveda. Advaryu is saying Yajurveda. And then there is this guy called Brahman, who is also an expert in Samaveda, but he is the supervisor and ensuring that this yajna is happening properly. Okay, so the Hotra of this, the various priests doing this yajna, the Hotra recites the Nishkaivalya Shastra mantras. Okay, so those Nishkaivalya Shastra mantras that are offered in the afternoon in the Mahavrata Yajna is called Brihati Sahasra. Okay? And Srimad Acharya also gives us in his works that Brihati Sahasra is called Brihadukta. Okay? It is called Brihad Ukta, also called as Brihati Sahasra, which comes in Aitareya Aranyaka, Aitareya Brahmana. And if you can recall the very first word of Aitareya Upanishad, what? Yeshaha Pantaha. Yesha. That was the very first word. Yesha is a pronoun. Yesha, this one. Which one? That one which is celebrated in the Brihati Sahasra is called Pantaha, is the link there. So the Brihati Sahasras are called Brihadukta. So you might ask, is Brihad Ukta or the Brihati Sahasra called Ukta? Is that what these prajas are saying? Ukta means, is it that? Probably could be, because one of the etymology of Ukta is Uttapayati, that which brings Vishnu close to us. If you recite this mantra, apparently Vishnu will get up and come close to you. That is a very metaphorical way of thinking about it. Uttapayati iti Ukta. Okay. Is Ukta Brihadukta, the mantras that wakes and brings Brahman to us? In a very metaphorical sense. That could be one meaning of Ukta here. The other meaning of Ukta here is, as you navigate through the rest of this Kanda, you will realize that there are many other entities that are also being described as Ukta. Okay, so you will get the hang of it when we navigate these verses. But for now, for this particular slide, stay with me on this, because there is a verse that comes, Tad idameva uktam yameva prati. That is what Aitareya says. Tad idam eva uktam. This in idam, idu, this in front of you with your hand. This in front of you is uktam. Tad idam eva uktam. What is this? Iyam eva Prithvi. This Prithvi is Ukta. Okay. Appears that Aitareya Upanishad is saying like that this Prithvi is Ukta. Okay. Who is the Abhimani Devati of Prithvi? Dhara Devi. Prithvi Abhimani Devata. She is 27th rank in the Vedic pantheon. Can she be the Ukta? Is another question that we should ask. Okay. This is how our Acharya has taught us how to read the Upanishads, of actually dissecting and going at various depths and levels, and then reach at a conclusion as to who the Ukta is. Beautiful. Could this be Vayu Tattva itself? Could this be Prana Tattva itself? Because there is a Prana Vidya in Aitareya Upanishad. That verse says, Taduktam Pranayeva, Pranavuktam iti eva vidyat, tam deva abruvan. So there is a verse that comes later. Okay? That says, Tad uktam pranayeva. So then the question is this Ukta Prana Tattva? Is he the Ukta that is being described here? Mahidasa Aitareya also talks about, as I said, in subsequent lines, he gives etymological meanings of Ukta in 3 different ways. Idam sarvam uttishtati yadidam kincha antariksham vava anupatanti antariksham anudavayanti pradhanadhi idam sarvam uttishtati yadidam kincha. So those are all the words that is going to come as we navigate this kanda, implying there could be, if you take the etymological meanings of this Ukta, it could mean something else. So the question is, who is this Ukta that is being said twice by Mahidasa Aitareya? When something is repeated twice, that implies that it is an important concept. Then it is being stressed by this Rishi or by Mahidasa Aitareya that it is very important for us to know who is this Ukta that is being celebrated. That is how the Manushyottamas and Rishis and Devatas, that is how they do the Upasana of Brahman. Not just throwing stuff into Agni or just thinking about the sun. They are actually thinking in an entirely different angle. So Srimad Acharya is our guide here. What does that Ukta actually means? Uttapanat Uktanama. The etymology of Utta is Uttapanat Uktanama. Ukta comes from the word Utta. Utta means Uttapanat. Uttapanat means Utpatti. Utpatti means creation, Utpatti of this universe. Okay, so that is how the Vedas, that is how Acharya progresses with the Aitareya Upanishad. When Mahidasa says, Uktam Uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti, what he is talking is, all these, the Satvika Jivas, they celebrate Brahman as Ukta, Ukta. He is the creator of the universe. He is the creator of the universe. He is the creator of the real universe. He is the creator of the real universe. Yeah. Not some, it's not mithya, for God's sake. Clear words from Mahidasa Aitareya. Ukta, Ukta. He is the independent creator of the universe. He is the independent creator of the universe. Uttapanat Uktanama. Okay, the etymology of Ukta. So that is how the Ukta Vidya starts. Ukta Vidya starts with the creator. That is a fundamental concept. That is why Janmadhyasya Yataha. Okay. He is the independent creator of the universe. Okay. That is the central concept in which this Khanda is going to progress. And that is a fundamental dictum of Vedic philosophy. He who is the creator of the universe. Janmadhyasya yataha iti bhagavata sutrakarena jagat udayadi nimitta karanatvam parasya brahmano lakshanam abhihitam nacha satyatamantarena jagat vastavam asambhavati. Jayatirtha. If Aitareya, Mahidasa Aitareya is saying he is the independent creator of the universe, Janmadhyasya means that Janmadhyasya has to be real, yeah, not some illusion as some people make it to be, and bring down the glories of Brahman. He who thinks that this world is mithya is actually bringing down the glories of Brahman. Yeah. And the ones that bring down the glories of Brahman, Mahidasa Aitareya has already reminded us what their destination is going to be. So we need to be very, very careful with regards to how our chintana and our contemplation should be. So Uktam uktam iti vai prajavadanti. Understanding the creatorship of Supreme is the most important upasana of Brahman. Okay. And as I told you, for such a contemplation, Brahman's creation should be considered real, not unreal. Yeah. That is our Mithyatma Anumana Kandana Tika Mangalacharana by Jayatirtha. I would strongly urge all of us to memorize this. The more we recite every day, the better we are going to progress. And of course, there are other concepts of creation. Okay, so which is interesting to think about it at this point of time. I've got a bit of a quiz coming up in a minute. Other concepts of creation. Okay, there is one concept called ex nihilo, creation from nothing. Just out of nothing, God brought into creation. De novo, new creation. There is one new creation, there is a destruction, end of the story. A beginning and an end, a linear relationship, finished. Okay. If we take these kind of questions, then Pringle Pattinson, another, again, a Western philosopher, asked an important question, and I just wished he read the Vedic Sanatana Dharma and the Upanishads, he would have found the answer. What induced the deity, which had obviously kept in its shell all the time, to suddenly take it to come out and call a universe into being? If it was a de novo creation, or if it was an ex nihilo creation from nothing or new creation, Pringle Patterson's question is very relevant and very reasonable in his book on idea of God. Why did he choose to bring creation into being? There is also another, important view, ex nihilo nihil fit, as it's called. Nothing comes from nothing in the universe. So assuming that creation happened out of nothing is hugely problematic in hardcore philosophy. Okay. There are other views of creation, transformation, that Brahman himself transforms himself to the universe. That's called Parinamavada. How can conscious Brahman transform to an insentient Jada? Does that not bring down the greatness of Brahman? That from great conscious being, he has become a stone. He has transformed himself into a stone. Have we not brought down the glories of Brahman if we pick up the Parinamavada? The problem here is which part of Brahman transforms into a stone? Which part? No answer. Brahman is Akhanda, he is partless. So if that is the case, which part of Brahman actually becomes the stone? No answer. Then there is the worst form of philosophy, superimposition, vivarta. Just like as how a snake is superimposed on a rope, or how a silver is superimposed on a conch shell. This is a dream. Yeah, this everything is mithya, anirvachaniya, and so on. And our Tattvavada and our Acharya has asked us to ask these questions and realize that kind of a view is an unproven assumption. There is no evidence in Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama that this is what is happening, that this universe is a superimposition. It is basically means that the universe is asat, essentially plucked from the Buddhist schools of philosophy. Perception, inference, and Agama do not support the tripartite classifications of reality. So if that were the case, then the fact that Mahidasa Aitareya is saying Uktam Uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti, it just does not fit into the monastic philosophy. And that is why they have conveniently decided not to discuss this as a part of the Aitareya Upanishad at all, but just take a few chapters and claim that to be the Aitareya Upanishad. So when you look at the language of the Aitareya Upanishad, you could understand why certain chapters have been conveniently forgotten, because they are problematic, very problematic, the monastic philosophy. The view from the Vedas, if you look at Isha Upanishad, Mahanarayana Upanishad, Bhagavatam, Gita, Vyasa Smriti, Bhagavatam, and so on, is it is an eternal creation. Creation is cyclical. It is not a new creation. It happens all the time. Kavir Manishihi Paribuhu Swayambuhu Yata Tatyato Arthan Vyadadat Shashwatibhyaha Samabhyaha. We have done this in Isha Upanishad. Yata Tartato Arthan. Yeah, Yathartha. Yeah, this universe is yatartha. Yatartha means real. The Isha Upanishad, Swayambhuva Manu, when he is worshipping the Yajnanamaka Paramatma, he is saying, Yajnanamaka Paramatma, your universe is real, yatartha. Yeah, I worship you because you have created a real universe. Yeah. Data yata purvam akalpayat. Mahanarayana Upanishad and Rigveda, they said this universe is cyclical. He creates exactly the sequence of creation is exactly how it was in the previous cycle. Yat idanim tat agre cha paschad api etad idrusham urdhvamulam. Vyasa Smriti hits it just nails. Vishwam Satyam Vasho Vishnoho Nityameva Pravahataha. Srimad Bhagavatam, very first verse. Damna Sveda Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. This universe is not an illusion. Nirasta Kuhakam. People forget conveniently these words. Satyam, it is real. Okay. So when we look at this uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti, we always have to get our compass back. Always use an opportunity to think about what are all the other views. What is the safe view? What is the correct view here for our progression? Keeping the first kanda into the equation. Okay, so we make a progress on this uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti because that is such an important line. Yeah. So what did we say so far? Ukta. It is said twice because it is a very important concept. Ukta means what? Uttapanat uktanama. Uttapanat means what? Utpatti. Utpatti of what? Creation of a real universe. Who says this? Iti vai prajaha vadanti. So that next couple of words becomes very important. Prajaha vadanti, not some ignorant fool. These guys are called prajaha, prakrishta jataha. The ones that are knowledgeable, that ones that actually have the knowledge of the Vedas, they are called the prajas. Okay. So a very brief quiz here. What is the meaning of praja given in the previous kanda? So who can answer that question? So here where the Yesha Pantaha, there was a praja there. Prajaha Tisro Atyayam Yuyu. There the praja means something else. Here the praja has got a new meaning. So what is the praja in the first kanda? So who wants to take that one?
Born from Vishnu,
Beautiful. Yeah. Fantastic answer, Neetaji. Thank you very much. So that is born of Vishnu, they are called prajas. In this whereas in this context, praja means Devadyaha prajaha. Acharya's bhashya. Vai means vai prasiddhaha. So authentic, popular. Prakrishta jataha, prajaha, devadyaha. Who are devadyas, devas, rishis and manishyotamas. They vadanti. They say, they praise. Exalted humans, rishis and devatas, they declare. They declare what? Tad idameva uktam. That is the next immediate set of words. Uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti tad idameva uktam. Okay, we will come to what the tad idameva uktam. What is it they are calling as tad idameva uktam? So we have not yet finished the ideas of utpatti. When our Aitareya has said ukta, we still got something to think here. Okay. Here is a quick, discussion point for us in the satsang. What is the difference between the creatorship of Brahman and a potter making a pot? We got your Narayana here who is bringing creation, and there is this potter who is making the pot. What do we think is the difference between the two? Can we have some ideas discussed, please? Yeah, please feel free to share your thoughts on this. Is there a difference? Yeah, go for it, Neeta Shushuji.
I think Brahma creates and also pervades, whereas Potter is just creating it. And so what do you call it? Anupravishat.
Yeah, thank you, Neetaji. Anybody else has a different view or anything else on it? Shaptarshiji?
Yes, I have a view here that the potter, when he creates a pot, because he wants to sell it to survive. But Brahman creates the universe out of his mercy and happiness. There is a shruti like Kosevanyat Kapranyat Tadeva Akasha Anando Nashvat. This is a shruti I can recall for this one. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Saptarshiji. That's from Aitareya Upanishad. Beautiful. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other views? Okay, super. Okay, I think Saptarshi's ideas was beautiful. He does just because of his own pure compassion, he brings about the universe, whereas a potter wants to sell the pot. Great thoughts, Saptarshiji, and Neetaji and Sushruji also. Neetaji also was saying that.
I want to add one thing. It
Yeah,
was
go for
not
it.
my thought. It was not my thought. I heard this in the discourse by Pandit Krishnacharya Pachapur. He in his Bhagavata discourse he was explaining this, that Paramatma does not need to make Maya because he is not dependent on anything. He is just creating out of happiness. So credit goes to him in
Yeah,
this case.
thank you very much, Saptarshiji. Thank you. So yeah, and then as Neetaji said, Tadeva Anupravishate, which is a fundamental core verse for this Upanishad. In this Kanda, that verse from Taittiriya is the core, and we'll come to that. Thank you very much, Neetaji, for bringing that concept out. Here is another reason why the creatorship of Brahman and pot is different. Okay, so if you think about the potter. The potter, to make a pot, what does he need? He needs a wheel. He needs a wheel. He needs a clod of clay. Yeah. And probably he needs a stick to, get the wheel to turn around. So he is actually dependent on so many things here. If he has to create a pot, he is dependent on so many things that are outside of him. Think about that idea. That is why Veda Vyasa's Brahma Sutra is great. Because that is what is being discussed here. One other difference between the creatorship. Our potter is dependent on so many items that are outside of him, and he creates a pot. Okay. The question there is Brahman also dependent on Mula Prakriti for making his creation, which is outside of him, which is different from him? Is he also dependent on Mula Prakriti? Because that is what we are saying so far, isn't it? He takes the Mula Prakriti. Gita Krishna has said, if he is dependent on Mula Prakriti, then he cannot be independent. This potter is a dependent creator. He is dependent on clod of clay and wheel and stick and everything else. Similarly, is our Brahman also dependent on Mula Prakriti for his creation? Any views on this? Anybody wants to come in and tackle this, important question? And again, Veda Vyasa picks it up in Brahma Sutra and addresses this. Anybody wants to come in? No problem. So to answer this, there is this particular sutra, second adhyaya, first pada, 15th sutra. Please go and check it out. I've given a reference. Tad ananyatvad arambana shabdadibhyaha. Double negative. Tad ananyat. Tad ananyatva arambana shabdadibhyaha. Okay, so our Acharya goes to Rig Veda to answer this question. Kim swed ased adishtanam arambanam katamasved, and so on. And there is a whole lot of sutras out there to address this question. So the answer to that question is our Brahman is not like the potter who is dependent on clod of clay and wheel. Our Brahman is an independent creator. He chooses to use Mula Prakriti because he wants to shed his grace on Mula Prakriti, so that the Mula Prakriti, Chaitanya Prakriti, can have his grace. He chooses to do that. That doesn't mean he is dependent on it. Yeah, choosing something is different from being independent, being dependent on it. It's a very subtle concept. Think about this. To shed his grace on all the Tattvabhimani Devatas, because creation means what? All the Tattvabhimani Devatas have to do various works, isn't it? In Brahmanda and all these Pancha Tanmatras, Pancha Bhutas, this, that, they all have to come into being, they have to be looked after, and then the Pindanda has to come, and all these Tattvabhimani Devatas have to look after. That is their job, their karma, they do their jobs. And why do they do their jobs? Paramatma graces to obtain Paramatma's grace, they do their jobs in Brahmanda and Pindanda. Okay, it is for their salvation that Paramatma uses these instruments to create the universe in this way using the Mula Prakriti. He can very well not use the Mula Prakriti and create the universe. Okay, but he chooses to do that. So there are two very subtle ideas. One is, as how Neetaji was mentioning, that he creates and he also enters into his creation. The second one is he is an independent creator. He is not dependent on Mula Prakriti like a potter. I hope that idea comes along quite easily. So, as Neetaji said, he not only creates, but he also enters and supports his creation. How does he support his creation? Swarupa, Pramriti, Swarupa, Pramiti, Pravriti, Satta. He enters into his creation. Why? To give them their reality, to give them their objecthood of knowledge, and to give them volition. Those are the three things. Okay? Swarupa, Pramiti, Pravriti. Foundational concepts of why Brahman enters into his creation. So again, for us to navigate the Ukta Vidya, this particular verse of Aitareya Upanishad, again I'll urge all of us to memorize. So akamayat bahusyam prajayeti satapo atapyata satapastaptva idam sarvam asrujata yadidam kincha tad srishtva tadeva anupravishat tad anupravishya Satucha, Tyatucha, Abhavat. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful verses of Taittiriya Upanishad makes it very clear what is that concept of creation in Vedic philosophy. Okay. This is spectacularly unique for Vedic Sanatana Dharma as to how we view the greatness of Lord's creation. Yeah. Tat Srishtva Tadeva Anupravishat. The same thing Ishavasya Upanishad. Ishavasyam idang sarvam. Sarvatra Prasiddha Upadeshat Brahma Sutra. And of course, our Mahanarayana Upanishad gives a beautiful, beautiful example. Antarbahishta tat sarvam vyapya narayana stitaha. These are all axiomatic shrutis that we should just memorize and think about it all the time. So when our Mahidasa Aitareya says Uktam Uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti, those prajas have got a concept of what that creation is. From the previous two slides and the current slide of summary of creation. So if we have understood how this Brahman has brought this creation into being, then maybe we could say we are prajas. Yeah, we could pat our back and say we probably belong to that category that Mahidasa Aitareya is saying as prajas, prakrishta jataha, who knows this creation quite well. So what do these guys say? They say Uktam Uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti. Who is that Uktam? Tat idameva Uktam. Idam, idu, yuvane. This fellow is Uktam. Who is that fellow? That Vishnu is the creator of the universe. Vishnu is the creator of the universe. Vishnu is the creator of the universe. Vishnu is Ukta. Vishnu is Ukta. Is what these jivas are saying. When they say Uktam Uktam iti vai prajaha vadanti tad idameva Uktam, they are saying Vishnu is Ukta, Vishnu is Ukta, Vishnu is the creator of the universe, Vishnu is the creator of the universe. That is how they worship. That is how they start their Upasana. We have not even gone into the nitty-gritties of how that Upasana progresses for individual categories of souls. But this is the prelude to that. And we need to get these ideas firmed up in our mind so that we do proper Upasana of Brahman. How to do Upasana on Brahman who is celebrated as Ukta. Okay. That is why this Taittiriya Upanishad becomes very, very important. Tad eva anupravishat. He pervades his creation. If we understand this idea of pervasion of Brahman in his creation, much of our own personal problems, much of our societal problems will be solved. But that is a very utopian view. The Satvika Jivas out there will actually put this into practice. That Tadeva Anupravishate. And he is giving what? Satta, Pramiti, Pravriti. He is giving them their reality and their volition and knowledgehood, objecthood of knowledge is what we should be thinking about. This Paramatma is entering in all the creation, giving them this. He is entering into me as my Antaryamin, and he is giving my reality, my objecthood of knowledge and my volition. That is how you look at it. That is what our Bhurbhuvaswaha is. Bhuhu Prithvi, Bhuvaha Antariksham, Swaha Dhyau. Okay, and that is how you build the samanvaya of what is that upasana that is being done. Remember, Bhuhu, earth, Agni upasana, Swaha, Aditya upasana, Antariksha, upasana in Vayu. So that is why how you connect this. Bhur Bhuvaswaha is where you do the contemplation. Okay. So you link the previous kanda to this kanda, where I've given you a simple cartoon for our. So the Mahidasa Aitareya, by teaching all the devatas there, is actually giving us the message as to how we should do our upasana. We don't have to go to some great pilgrimage. We don't have to go to some great temple. We don't. If we do it and we have the capacity to do it, that is good. But it is not a must. All that you have to do is just go out of your house. Just go to your backyard or your front yard. Just stand on that earth. Look at that sun. Look at the space in between. That is your upasana, says Mahidasa Aitareya. Never said go to this place or go to that place, do this puja, give this dakshina to this fellow and that fellow. No. He said just go back to your backyard, guys, and look at this. What do you want to look at? Look, you stand on the earth. Look at the sun and the space in between. That is your upasana of Brahman. Dhyau, Surya. Prithvi, Antariksha is the space between the sun and earth is the Antariksha. In Dhyau, Surya. In Antariksha, Prana. In Prithvi, Dharadevi. Okay. Now these are all the guys. And then you have to bring in the concept of there's something called Adhisthana, where you want to contemplate on this Brahman who has pervaded this universe. What is his Vahana? What is the vehicle in which he comes in the material plane for our contemplation? What is that Vahana? Who is that Garuda? That is the Vahana. And what is the Bhojya? How do you offer? Whenever you do some worship, you either do Naivedya or if you do Agni Kunda, you put Ahuti. What is that Anna that you have to give? What is the Vahana? Where is that where is that? Is it Prithvi or Antariksha or Dhyau? Is it in the Brahmanda? Okay, that is the Surya, the space and the land. Is it in the Brahmanda? If it is in the Brahmanda, who are the Abhimani Devatas? And inside the Abhimani Devatas, how is he there? That is the Adideva Upasana. If you can't go outside, if it is very cold, for example, the place where we are living at this point, it's very cold. You can't constantly go out until the spring comes along. When it is cold, you can't go out. Then what do you do? Sit in your house, sit in your drawing room, look at your body, Adhyatma Chintana. Look at your eyes, look at your nose, look at your mouth. Just do the Brahman's Upasana in these three. Again, you don't have to go to the temple. You don't have to go on big pilgrimages. You don't have to give all this dakshina to these useless fellows. You can quietly do your contemplation as advised by Mahidasa Aitareya in the eyes, in the nose, in the mouth. Mouth, Prithvi, where Agni is. You're all very experts on the Tattvabhimani Devatas of Agni, who is there here. Vayu is in the nose. Surya is in the eyes. Exactly the Dhyau, Antariksha and Prithvi. So that is the Adhyatma Chintana. Okay. So that is how the second kanda progresses. It starts off with Adidaiva Chintana. How do these exalted souls, how do these Manushyottamas worship in Prithvi? How do these rishis worship in Surya? How do these devatas worship in Antariksha, in Vayu? How do they do? What is the Adhisthanam? What is the Vahana? What is the Bhojya? So those are the three fundamental concepts. So what we will do is in the next satsang, we'll pick up on these grand ideas of Mahidasa Aitareya, grand ideas of the Upanishads, okay, of how to do this upasana of Brahman. Okay. These are really incredible verses of the second kanda. They get a bit complicated. It's like layers and layers. You have to link one level to the other level to the other level and so on. And we have to do it very, very slowly, which is what Srimad Acharya has taught us through his Aitareya Upanishad Bhashya, as to how slowly you have to progress this, and then you can appreciate the grand vision of the Aitareya Upanishad, and no wonder that was the most favorite Upanishad of Srimad Acharya. So on that note, lots of slides, of course, coming up. I will say Krishna Pranamastu and close today's session. We can open it for brief Q&A, but just a couple of announcements for next week. The first one I was going to say is thank you so much for our satsangis for being so enthusiastic to raise some funds for the health, the Krishna Valley Health Center. I hope it will be of some use to the folks there. We managed to collect 2,000 pounds, which is not an insignificant amount, which probably will help with buying a medical equipment, which will be of some use to some soul in Krishna Valley. So thank you very much for that. And eventually, once we get all the paperwork sorted out, I will do the needful and I'll keep you all posted on this. The second announcement was that we got Gita Chintana next Sunday. Suresh ji, if you're there, do you want to briefly give us an update of how the Gita Upanishad Chintana is going to progress next Sunday, please? Over to you, Suresh ji.
Thanks, Madhuji. We'll continue discussion on chapter 10. A wonderful introduction has been laid down into the Vibhuti, the why of it. And now I think we get into the material stuff of the 10th Adhyaya, the actual examples where Krishna starts giving some examples and giving some pratikas that help in dhyana and how one should contemplate. So it will be an interesting session, I hope. A bit of a revision of the first part of the 10th chapter. And Madhuji, your last two sessions, how does Manushattamas pray? I mean, all of these ideas will anyway be touched upon in this session. So I think it's very timely. And so we will take through, and that should perhaps be the last session in chapter 10. And we're trying to get a guest lecture in the next Gita Chintana session. Thanks, Madhuji.
Sounds good, Sureshji. Thank you so much. Any questions or any discussions? Yeah, Anandji?
Thank you, Madhuji. When you asked about if Manushattamas can reach up to the level of Chaturmukha Brahma, so it reminded me of Venkiji's slide wherein it said Devatas have infinite amount of sattvic as their innate nature, maybe one or two rajas and tamasic. So, but Manushattamas are a mix of the three qualities of innate nature. So how it can never be possible for Manushattamas to reach to that level to become Chaturmukha Brahma.
Completely agree with you, Anandji, but unfortunately there are some folks out there who think otherwise. But I just thought that it's an opportunity for us to remind ourselves as to how classic our understanding should be, rather than these utopian ideas. I've heard folks talk about, oh, if you do good karma, so on, you will become Chaturmukha Brahma, and then apparently an ant can become a Chaturmukha Brahma, and apparently the Chaturmukha Brahma, he will do sins and then he will become an ant. I've heard all this nonsense that is being said, and I only hope and pray that Krishna forgives them. Chaturmukha Brahma and Mukhya Prana forgive these unfortunate souls who take that view. Yeah, we can never be, forget about us being even a rishi. Can I imagine myself to become a Mukhya Prana? Give me a break. Who are these people, propagating this, pseudo Vaishnavism that is out there? And I think we need to be very, very, very clear in our forum to give information as it is in the Vedas, rather than some pseudo Vaishnavism coming up with some fellow giving his own ideas, which should be rejected in my view, because we are out here to understand what the pustaka is saying, not some mastaka. So I agree with you, Anandji, 100%. I 100% agree with you on this. Yeah.
The only other way is if there is an avatara of one of the devatas, then it as a manusha, then it can be possible, like Shushruta was mentioning about Vadrajara.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's an exception, right? But it's not the rule. So, yeah, that is also an interesting thought that you mentioned and picked up by Shushuji. So, who is the iPhone C4P?
Oh,
Sorry, I couldn't.
this is me, Venkatesh.
Oh, Venkiji, yes, go for it.
Namaskara. Very, 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 very interesting discussion. Very sobering also. The number of souls that are there. So to follow up on Anandji and all what you're saying, it's like a tight compartment. The fact that a Manushya Jiva cannot become a Rishi is itself proof that nobody can become Brahman. So if you are saying that somebody is going to become Chaturmukha, that is at least one thing. There are people who are saying that you are yourself Brahman already. So if you are not even able to go from one compartment to the other, so a Shesha Jiva cannot become a Garuda Jiva, for example, because the Garuda Jiva criteria that people meet, there is just infinite number of Garuda Jiva criteria who are waiting their turn after doing, how many hour kalpas of sadhana. Like Rudradeva is doing how many hour kalpas of sadhana. There is so many Rudra Ganas already in line. There is so many Rujagana already on the line. There is Latavya and all of these other. So the compartment itself is so rigid and watertight that somebody, a normal soul becoming Parabrahman himself, is like completely ruled out, because you cannot even go from your own category to the next category that is available. So the ultimate thought, blasphemous thought, that you could become Parabrahman is completely ruled out. That's what I wanted to say, because of this question that you are saying. But then the second point that I wanted to make, to remind, is that beautiful chart that you have, where you have the Manushottama standing right there. That Manushottama category is the only one that has Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Chaturvarnya, Maya, Srishtam, Gunakarma, Vibhagaya. That is the one that is happening. That, so if someone comes out and says, somebody who can peer into your soul and say, I can see you a Shudra soul, you should celebrate like anything, because you are above that line where you have a opportunity to reach your own fulfillment of mukti, for example. So the water tightness is at each individual soul level, it is at individual level, and it is across the levels, right? So that's what I wanted to point out and say. This is a really, really good slide, because one of the questions that somebody would ask is, how are these tamasic gunas? The tamasic people are the ones that you have pointing the arrow downwards, steeply. So who are these people who are not Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra? Well, there are these people, Pishachas, Rakshasas, and Asuras. So this is a really, really nice chart, and I wanted to say how insignificant. I wanted to redouble what you are saying about the insignificantness of it, and the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra in that Manushottama category there.
Beautiful, Venkiji. Thank you very much for an excellent summary of that. Anandji.
Madhuji, somewhere you showed creation happens out of nothing. There has to be, you said something about creation, isn't it?
Yeah. Ex nihilo.
I just wanted this a comment. It reminded me of the Bhagavad Gita shloka. Nasato vidyate bhava, na bhava vidyate satah, ubhayorapi drashtvantaha, tvanayo tattvadarshibhi. It has many meanings, but one of the meanings is nothing comes out of there has to be something existing and it doesn't cease to exist. So that fits in very well with what you said in that particular slide.
Thank you for the reminder, Anandji. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Excellent, guys. Any other questions? Saptarshiji, go for it.
So I have a discussion regarding, like, in one of the slides, there is a there is a school which believe that the Parinam Vada, that Brahman himself becomes the Prakriti, right? That is the point there. So I just want to share, like, because few days back I was going through a discussion that and this discussion was between, it started from a Sri Vaishnava scholar. So basically they believe that Brahman is the Upadan Karana himself for the Prakriti, and they follow the Satvata Samhita, which is a Pancharatra text, where it is being compared like the spiders, the chemical it comes out of it, and that's why they take the face value that Brahman is the Upadan Karana. And the Gaudiya school also believe, but not like Sri Vaishnavas, that okay, that Brahman has three potencies. One is the Antaranga potency, which is Bhagavan himself, and the Bahiranga, which is the Prakriti, and the Tatastha, which is the marginal potency, which is the Jiva. But in these different discussions, and the discussion was going between two people, one from the Sri Vaishnava scholar, and one then the Madhva, he is also countering. And then the Sri Vaishnava school, because they believe this Atma Shariri Bhava. So Paramatma is the Atma, and his body is the Sharira. But then the argument came that, okay, then the body, because the Prakriti has some flaws, then do we want to conclude that Brahman also has a flaw? And then the Sri Vaishnava scholar gave an argument that, okay, Brahman's Swarupa has no flaw, but his body might have some kind of flaws. And in this aspect, okay, it is my personal opinion. I personally think that the Madhva philosophy is so unique that they try to harmonize it, that Brahman cannot have any flaw. That is the condition. So it is better if we have to conclude that Brahman's body has some flaw, better to segregate it. Even like if we have to treat it separately, better to keep it as a separate entity, rather joining this Prakriti with Brahman in some way. So I think in that way, this is the beauty, I think, and it is more logical, because Brahman does not have any flaw, right? So calling Brahman as the Upadan Karana, okay, like it makes sense, like in an abstract layer. So because we Jivas and the Prakriti, we all are Brahman's family. So in that way, we are in one entity, but we are separate also from inside. Because yeah, this is something, because I came up with this discussion few days back. That's why I wanted to share.
Very nice, Saptarshiji. Very deep philosophical discussions you have listened to around the various schools of Vedanta that look at this problem. Anybody wants to share their thoughts on or add anything, any other ideas to what Saptarshiji has been, sharing with us about the transformation, the theory of transformation, and how it is a little problematic, or not. So it's out there. We can make our own decisions. Anybody else wants to come in here? Okay, yeah, fine. So anyway, thank you very much, Saptarshiji. We can pick up on the Parinamavada and the Chit and the Achit aspect of Brahman, and how Sharira, Shariri, Bhava can operate, and so on. So only one thing that I would say about the Sharira, Shariri, Bhava concept is, if this universe is the body of Brahman, then he will always be in samsara. He is always attached to this material universe. He can never get detached from the material universe. So you can actually bring down Brahman to be in samsara always. There are some guys called Nitya Suris who don't have any material links at all in that school. But if you have the Shariri Bhava, then it becomes a huge, interesting concept to rebut. As to then then do you mean to say your Brahman is always in samsara? That is another argument that comes in this discussion. The other one is Chit and Achit portions of Brahman. And how is that? How can you have two different portions of Brahman? the view there is it is the Achit portion of Brahman that transforms into Brahman, not his Chit portion. Then what is that Achit portion? Is it the same as Chit or different? How can it be the same? Because Achit is different, Achit is different. So you can have that kind of discussions. And then then it is Achit, then if you say Achit is different, then actually that concurs with the Tattvavada, where Achit for us is Mula Prakriti, which is different from Brahman and so on. So that kind of conversations can go on, but it's very interesting. Shaptarshiji, you wanted to come back again.
Yes, so one of the problem what you mentioned, Madhusudanji, that if Brahman and Prakriti, they are the same entity, then the Shruti Vakya, what Nidhaji mentioned, he does not need to enter the Prakriti.
Yeah. And then the same Shruti also says, Asango hi evam purushaha. So he is completely not linked at all. You also have the Asango hi evam. So all those interesting discussions. But Saptarshide, thank you very much. And Venkiji, thank you very much for sharing excellent ideas. Anandji, Sushruji, Sureshji, all thank you very much. May I request Anandji to recite Omkara and we close today's session.
Sure.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. We'll catch up next week for an excellent Gita Chintana that is upon us. So hope to see you all there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.